Good morning. Thanks for joining me for the live stream. Think you know American history and civics? In this video, you'll take the same type of test that immigrants take when they're applying for naturalization. There are 20 questions. Your challenge is to be able to get 12 out of the 20 correct. It used to be 6 out of 10. Now it's going to be 12 out of 20. This is part 6 of an 8-part series called Are You Smarter Than an Immigrant? You can watch the other 5 parts. I have it on a playlist on my channel. And the last 2 parts you can watch here on the live stream, which airs every Sunday at 10 a.m. Now, before we get into the quiz, and I'm doing the quiz simply because for the last couple of, I've only had a few live streams and nobody shows up. But I want to talk a little bit about all these folks being arrested at their marriage interviews. This is so disconcerting for me. You know, immigration attorneys have always known that people who come in on visitors visas, particularly the ones that they don't need to get a visa in their passport. Basically, if you come from Europe, Japan, Chile, there's a number of different countries. You're not required to get a stamp in your passport to be able to come in here. You can get a visitor's visa. It's a visitor visa waiver program, it's called. But one of the things connected to that is you have to agree that if you're found to have broken the law, you can be deported pretty much as soon as they pick you up. It's called expedited removal. Except nobody ever talked about it because it was never a problem. You know, they say that they want you to do things the right way. In fact, I can remember in Trump's first term, he was talking, lots of people were saying, who defended him, were saying, look, we don't have any problem with legal immigration. Do it the legal way. We just want all these illegal aliens out of here. And even back then, I said, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. They don't want any immigration. They think they've got enough brown people here and they don't want anybody here. So this was always a concern kind of in the back of your mind that they could get picked up at their marriage interview if they wanted to do it, if they wanted to be mean. Well, that's what they're doing, and I'm seeing it across the country. You know, people come in, they come to visit, they come as students, they come on legal visas, and things happen. Maybe they meet Mr. Wonderful and they decide to just stay. And they fall in love and they get married. And because they entered with a visa and they're married to a U.S. citizen, they're allowed to adjust status. So they do that 2-step process of the U.S. citizen applies for the I-130, the immigrant visa petition for their spouse, and the immigrant applies for adjustment of status, meaning they're going to change from being a non-immigrant to being an immigrant. Right? Doing it the legal way. But now they're getting stopped after their interview. That's, if there's a silver lining, they're being stopped before. No, strike that. They're being stopped after they've had their interview. And there was this leaked memo, I guess you heard about it, right? Where while there's like an instruction for the adjudicators and the other officers that when you come in, the guy or the woman is behind the desk, in front of their computer. Well, guess what? They're in communication with their supervisor, with ICE officers, And they're going to try to make a determination as to whether or not ICE should arrest you strike that, after the interview, which is creepy as hell. You think should be a good time for you, because this is finally coming to fruition. You have a good marriage, and you think that everything's going to be just fine. And here they're passing messages back and forth to each other about you. So, for instance, they don't want to necessarily take into custody somebody who, let's say, is diabetic or has some serious medical, some other serious medical condition. So they're deciding whether or not they should have sent ICE in to arrest you. Oh my God. Now, I say that it's the silver lining is that it's being done after you've had your interview. And I'm going to tell you why I say that. Because, of course, a lot of people are thinking, should I go to my interview? Maybe I should just withdraw this. How about if I just withdraw the I-130, the U.S. citizen withdraws his I-130, and the immigrant withdraws her 485, and we'll just, act like this never happened. And then once Trump is out of office, we'll have a do-over. Well, I would suggest that, first of all, the decision is yours, okay? And you can certainly do that if you want to do that. They're still going to have your information. They're still going to know where you live. It's yet to be seen how many people they're going to send out, how often ICE is going to send people and knock on the doors of the people that withdrew their applications. Because just because you withdrew it doesn't mean that they haven't kept a copy of it. They know where you live. If a client were to ask me what I think they should do, I would say go to the interview. Because you want to be able to prove that you have a valid marriage. Because if you can prove that you have a valid marriage, they'll approve your I-130 petition. That's a petition for an immigrant visa, right? They'll approve that. However, the reason that is so important is because, let's say, you do run the risk of getting detained. And sure enough, they take you down, hopefully not in handcuffs, but they take you down to the ICE office, they process you, and they might release you on your own recognizance, maybe with an ankle bracelet. They might not, in which case you're going to have to ask for bond, which that can be horrific, and you might not want to have anything to do with that. But if you can stomach that, you'll get bond, probably, unless you're a flight risk or you're a danger to the community, which in most cases you're not. If you're married to a U.S. citizen, you're probably not a flight risk because you want to be able to get yourself legal here. Danger to the community. Do you have 2 DUIs? If you have 2 DUIs, you're not getting bond. But if they approve that I-130, you can then process for adjustment of status with the immigration judge. So you have to go through all this emotional and physical horribleness. But in the end, you'll be able to adjust your status with the immigration judge. Well, what's the difference between an immigration judge or a USCIS adjudicator? What's the difference? Well, first of all, they're under two. Oh, hi, somebody's here. Thank you for showing up. And if you have a question, just type it into the chat and I'll see it and I'll answer it for you. Let me go back to where I was. If the immigration court, also known as the Executive Office of Immigration Review, is under the Department of Justice, USCIS and ICE and CBP, which is the Border Patrol, that's all under Department of Homeland Security. So they have different bosses. And generally speaking, even back in the day, before Trump, if a lot of times when that I-130 would get approved, the judge would then ask me, counselor, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to do a motion to terminate, meaning terminate the deportation proceedings and get this young woman out of deportation and she can adjust her status in front of USCIS? I would have already discussed this with my clients, and my advice almost always in Philadelphia would be, don't. It's faster to do it through the court. And number two, they're just nicer in court. You never know what the heck USCIS is going to come up with. So in this case, if you have an approved I-130, you can go forward with adjustment of status with the immigration judge. And that is my understanding as to what is happening with these. They're not arresting people as soon as they, sign in, because they know. They've seen your file. They've already reviewed it. They know you entered on the visa waiver program, let's say, or you were a student and you overstayed. They know that you, so-and-so, are now present waiting for your interview, and they could go into the waiting room and arrest you right then and there. But my understanding is that that's not what's happening. That they're calling you in and they're all nice and they're talking to you. You think the officer's so nice. This is what a relief. And they start asking you questions. Normally, for a normal marriage interview, they're going to ask you for your passport. They're going to make sure they have your correct address. And then they start going, generally speaking, they start going through the I-130 and start checking things, making sure everything's okay. Eventually, they begin to ask questions. And normally the questions begin with, so how did you two meet? That's almost always one of the first questions. So how did you two meet? And they don't automatically separate you. They only separate people in marriage interviews when they think that it's not a valid marriage. That's a real bad sign. It's a red flag when you find out that they're going to separate you. So Brad Bernstein just did a whole thing on the 7 most popular questions people ask during that the adjudicators ask during the interviews. But I had a set of clients that, if I knew that the marriage was not legit, I wouldn't take the case. I just didn't need the money that bad, and I wouldn't touch it. So anytime I walked into the immigration office with a couple, I was pretty sure it was a valid marriage. So imagine my surprise when they did separate this couple and they asked the U.S. citizen, this is back in the day, I'm going to age myself here, but they asked the U.S. citizen, so do you have a clock radio? which, 10, 15, 20 years ago, everybody had a clock radio. That's how you woke up in the morning. And they said, yes. Where is the clock radio? And he says, well, I sleep on the left, and it's right next to my side of the bed where the nightstand is. So there's a list of 10, 20 different questions they ask him, and then they send him out and they bring her back in. And then they ask her, well, where's the clock radio? And she says, oh, it's right in front of the bed on top of the TV. Obviously don't live together. Obviously do not live together, because nobody had 2 clock radios in their bedroom, just one. Just saying. Okay. So the one person who was here, I guess because we're not doing the quiz, they decided to bow out. So let me start with the quiz, but I just wanted to talk about that. Should you go to your marriage interview or shouldn't you under, these circumstances? And I would say you should go because, well, let me rephrase. If it's a valid marriage, you should go. If he's just helping you out, he was some guy that you worked with, don't go. You shouldn't have filed the thing in the first place. You couldn't, even back in the day, it was extremely difficult to trick immigration if you were in a marriage of convenience. Although people seem to think they could do that all the time. I'm like, half the time they couldn't even get past me, let alone get past an adjudicator. So anyway, I would suggest that you go if it's a valid marriage. Get that I-130 approved. Make sure this, and I've said this for decades. If you're an immigrant and you're here illegally, you need to be saving your money. You need to be putting money aside every week for a legal fund. Way back when I was in law school, and one of the partners that I worked with, he said, Bev, you should be doing, when you become an attorney and you open your own office, you should be doing business immigration. And I said, I really don't like business immigration. The employers don't like me, and I don't like them all that much. I like working with regular people. He says, look, Bev, every company's budget has a line for legal fees. No home budget has a line for legal fees. And you know what? He's absolutely correct. I would strongly suggest that you get a budget for legal fees, because you're going to need it if you're not here legally. And Jesus Christ, he's deporting. He's picking up U.S. citizens. Did you see, what's the name of that woman? She's an American Indian, and she was in Northern Exposure. She was the doctor's secretary and receptionist and stuff. She got detained by ICE. Now, how sweet is that? A freaking Native American is detained by, and a famous one on top of it, is detained by ICE. And she shows him her federal ID that she has that proves that she's part of this Indian nation. And he doesn't believe it. He says that's bogus. That anybody could make one of those things. Which that started a whole conversation. You can see that on YouTube. That's where I saw it. That started a whole conversation about whether or not these people who are saying that they're ICE, are they really ICE? They might not be ICE. They could be. They kept saying that they're bounty. They're bounty. I'm thinking, what are you talking? They're bounty hunters? Bounty hunters dressed up as ICE? I don't know. But that's rich, isn't it? That you have the goal to arrest a Native American. Jesus. So, get together some money. Get together some money. If you're not born here, get together some money every week. Put some money aside because you never know when you're going to need it. Because I got news for you. I hate to say it, but we have another 3 years with this son of a bitch. I should watch my vulgarity and probably should not even talk about politics, but it's impossible. It's impossible to talk about immigration and not talk about politics and not talk about this man. And don't even talk to me about the whole Venezuela thing and blowing up boats and killing people that are hanging on for dear life. Anyway, let me get back to the quiz. I want to go to the quiz. Obviously, the person who was here is no longer here. Oh, well. So let's do this quiz. Oh my God, this is part 6. You got to watch part 5. I made so many mistakes on that. And it's, what was funny is that I didn't, I'm not funny when I try to be funny. When I try to make a joke, like a planned joke for a party or something, it always falls. My timing is horrendous. But this was just funny because I didn't really intend to say the things that I said. I made some sexual innuendos a couple of times. And anyway, probably part 5 is going to be my most popular part of this whole series. Oh, by the way, it looks like there's going to be, there's definitely going to be a part 7. I think there's going to be a part 8 too. So, and then I'll finish this up. People have liked it, so that's good. But let's get into part 6. Now, the last time I left, we had talked about FDR and how his cousin, who is president many years before him, Theodore, pronounced his last name Roosevelt, and Franklin Delano pronounced the last name Roosevelt. That's why you'll hear 2 different ways of pronouncing that name. So we are into the mid-1900s, and question number 1. Are you ready? I was hoping that there would be people here so that they could write in the answers, but they're not doing that. I have 0 people here at 23 minutes, 22 minutes, 23 minutes. All right. So number 1, who did the United States fight in World War II? This is a very important question. And it's important because you're going to see that when you go in for your naturalization interview, the adjudicators are going to expect you to know certain things. In fact, I actually had an adjudicator. Ask my client, what happened on December 7th, 1941? And I said, excuse me, that's not on the list of proposed questions. And he copped an attitude. I knew this guy for many years. He copped an attitude with me, and he says, I'm allowed to ask them anything I want. That was at a very important date. That was the date they bombed Pearl Harbor. It was a very important date in our history, and they should know it. Well, I don't know if they're allowed to ask whatever they want. I kind of think they can. But especially with this administration. So I would stick to these 100. Well, right now they're going to be, I think it's 127 questions they have for this test. But at the very least, you might not have to know the date, December 7th, 1941, the day that will live in infamy. But you definitely need to know who the United States fought in World War II. There were three countries: Japan, Germany, Italy. Number two, before he was president, Eisenhower was a general. What war was he in? Easy. Well, it's easy for me. World War II. It's easy because Eisenhower was the president right before JFK, John Kennedy. He was president the year I was born in the late 1950s, and you always saw him, with his medals on and stuff. And so you don't have to think, well, was it World War One? Was it no? It's just World War II. That's always generally that's going to be the answer, World War II, for any of these questions. Eisenhower served as the 34th president in the United States from 1953 until 1961. So the war wasn't even over for 10 years when he got elected. So he served in World War II. During the Cold War, this is number three. During the Cold War, what was the main concern of the United States? Communism. It's funny. Russia was our ally during World War II, but soon, we or they flipped the page and we became enemies after World War II. And that's what the whole Cold War was about, was communism and the spread of communism. What movement tried to end racial discrimination? Now, this is one of those questions that a lot of native-born might not know, because they want the precise language. They want the precise language that they've given you, and that would be the Civil Rights Movement. The American Civil Rights Movement, which took place during the 1950s and 60s, demanded an end to racial segregation and discrimination. Number five, what did Martin Luther King do? That's important, right? He was a very important person. So there's multiple possibilities. One, he fought for civil rights. Two, he worked for equality for all Americans. He was a leading, there's just two. He was a leading civil rights activist and a recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize. He was also assassinated in the 60s. That was in Memphis. In fact, they turned the hotel where he was murdered, where he was assassinated, into a civil rights museum. I took my kids there a long time ago. And of course, the eldest, the little one, was just running around. The eldest was like, "Can we go, Mom? Can we go, Mom? Can we go, Mom?" Because there were all these pictures of hangings, of lynchings. And it really spooked her out. She was like 8 or 9 years old. So we jump all the way from the 60s all the way up to 2001. What major event happened on September 11th, 2001? There's no way you don't know that answer, right? If you don't, I don't know what to say. If you don't, you must be quite young, because we all know. We all know what happened, but the answer that they're looking for is there was a series of 4 coordinated terrorist attacks carried out by Al-Qaeda, a Muslim extremist group. Right? You say 4, they hit the Twin Towers. What are you talking about? Well, there were 2 planes that hit the Twin Towers. There was one that hit the Pentagon, and then there was one flying around Pennsylvania, which, by the way, is where I live. I had to go pick up the kids in, oh my God, I had to pick up Delilah, the older one, first. I'm not supposed to be mentioning their names. I had to pick up the older one first. She was, this is 8. And then I had to go pick up the little one who was just 4. She was in her pre-K. And meanwhile, we're hearing on the radio, all this, they know that there's a 4th plane. They're not sure where it is. It's somewhere over Pennsylvania. I'm like, oh, shit. And it's not going to be over, Pittsburgh. It's not going to be over Erie. It's not going to be over Harrisburg. It's going to be over Philadelphia, right? And that's the one that actually crashed. That's where the guys say, let's roll. And they attacked the hijackers. They were supposed to have 4 hijackers on that plane, and they only had 3, which is why they say it didn't work the way they expected it to. That was supposed to be flying into DC. I don't remember what they thought it was going to hit. Was it going to be the Pentagon again, or was it the Capitol, or I don't know. So anyway, I tell Delilah as we're going up the steps of the elementary school where the little one is, and she's in the little pre-K room. I said, look, don't tell her what happened. Because I had explained to her, because, the principal at the school where I picked up the older one, he's standing there in front of the older classes crying. That's not good. You're supposed to be showing strength. And so, of course, my kid was very concerned. What happened? I said, oh, something terrible happened up in New York. And, a lot of people got killed, and people are worried, and they're just sending everybody home. Okay. And I might have even told her they flew a plane into a building. I'm not sure I would have said that, though. But anyway, we're going up to the steps. We're going up to the steps and then going down the hall to get to the little one's room. And I said to her, look, I don't want you telling her anything. She's too little to understand this. We're just picking her up, picking her up early, going home early. That's it. Okay, mommy. We go in. A lot of the kids have already been picked up by now. It's almost noon. They were closing at noon. And so we go over to the little one. And the first thing the big one says is, you know why we're going home today? It's like, I told you not to say anything. To which the little one, who they called her grandma, even when she was in pre-K, she looks at her and she says, I know where we're going home today. And I said, oh, you do? She says, yeah, we are having an emergency. I thought that was great. We are having an emergency. That's right. That's all you need. That's all the little kids need to know. We're having an emergency. Well, it was an emergency. So you have to, if you don't know what happened on September 11th, 2001, I don't know, you must be like 21 years old or something. Okay, now, this is actually one of the reasons I wanted to do this live or verbally, because I didn't have to write all these names down. They ask you to name one Native American tribe in the United States. Shoot, there's nobody here. I was going to ask them if they could write in at least one name. Well, they give you a whole slew of them. There's the Cherokee, there's Navajo, there's Sioux, which is spelled Sioux. There's Chippewa, Choctaw, Pueblo, Apache, Iroquois, which they were over here. I think they were over here near me. That's Iroquois, Iroquois. The Creek, the Blackfeet, the Seminole, Is yours on the list yet? The Cheyenne, the Arawak, the Shawnee, the Mohegan, the Huron, there's a lake named after them, the Oneida, the Lakota, the Crow, the Teton, and the Hopi. That's what's on the list. Now, for some reason, well, this is number 8. The question is, we've had this question in an earlier part, but I'm going to ask it again. Who is the Chief Justice of the United States right now? And I'm going to ask that just because one of the things you can do, if you don't know the answer to some of these things, like what's the name of your senator and what's the name of your representative and who's the Chief Justice of the United States, you can go to uscis.gov/citizenship/test updates to learn those names. We know it's John Roberts. I think it's John G. Roberts Jr. Worst Chief Justice of my lifetime. We're going to see what happens. We're going to see what happens because the Supreme Court just said that they're going to take over the case of whether or not the executive order that Trump put out saying basically ending birthright citizenship, they're going to take that case up on its merits, not on technicalities and stuff. They've already done that, which of course has everybody all upset. I've already seen one of the immigration attorneys on YouTube saying, Supreme Court posed to gut birthright citizenship. We don't know that. That's called clickbait. We don't know that. You know, I still have faith and hope in the Supreme Court. Not all the Supreme Court justices, but in the Supreme Court in general. I can't believe that they would overturn more than 200 years of precedent. I was reviewing it the other night, though. What's that guy's name? Kim Ark? Something like that. It's a very important immigration case. But this guy who said that, you know, they're going to overturn it. They're going to stop. They're going to gut, is what he said. They're going to gut U.S. citizenship. Well, listen. His point is sort of well taken. I hate to say it because I hate the way he's presenting it, because he's just presenting it so that you click on his video. But his point is like, well, why would they even take this up if they weren't going to gut it? Why would he take it up? It's already been determined. And just stay with what the lower courts have said, right? Well, part of the problem is that there's been lots and lots of amicus briefs on this, and a lot of people are sitting on both sides of the fences. That's a problem. We just have to wait. We'll have a better feel in January, February when they're actually when the hearings begin. We're not going to have a decision until June, so don't worry. And I would have to presume if the worst thing happens and they say, you know what, they're right. That whole under the jurisdiction of the United States doesn't apply to people who are here illegally, which is nuts, because that's the main argument, that if they have to be in the United States and under the jurisdiction of the United States. Well, obviously, they're under the jurisdiction of the United States. They can't just say, no, I'm not going to obey your laws. I'm not a U.S. citizen. I'm not a permanent resident. I don't have to obey any of these rules. But yeah, you do. So they are under the jurisdiction. I'm going to leave it in the hands of the ACLU and all the other all the other people on the left who will be filing more and more briefs will have a feel, because you can tell by the way they ask their questions how they're leaning. But who is the Chief Justice of the United States? That's John G. Roberts Jr. Oh my God. Number 9, name one power of the federal government. What do they do? Think about it. Now, this is for you native borns who are watching this, because the permanent residents who are taking this test, they already know because they've studied it. What's one power of the federal government? The ones that have been listed to print money. It used to be, when they were colonies, every colony had their own, they had their own currency. So 1 is to print money. 2 is declare war. Oh, by the way, we're at war with Venezuela. No, we're not. That's not, the president doesn't declare war. The Congress has to declare war. 3 is to create an army. And 4 is to make treaties. They're the answers they're looking for. So now, the other side of name one power of the federal government is name one power of the states. What do the states have power over that the federal government is not supposed to step in? 1, provide schooling and education. 2, provide protection, and by that we mean police. We don't mean the National Guard. We don't mean send in the Marines to Chicago. Provide protection, the local police. Provide safety, the fire departments and the EMTs, right? Give a driver's license. Approve zoning and land use. Number 11, who is the governor of your state right now? You should know that. Whether you're a U.S. citizen just taking this for fun, whether you're a permanent resident applying, studying to take this test, you should know who the governor of your state is. For instance, in Pennsylvania, it's Josh Shapiro, right? You should know. Again, they tell you if you don't know who, first of all, just Google it. This says, go to USCIS, USCIS.gov. It's not here. I don't have it here, but just Google it. Who is the governor of, Minnesota or wherever the heck you're living, right? Number 12, another one you should definitely know. I don't care if you're a permanent resident or a native born. What's the capital of your state? I can understand not knowing the capital of other states. Like a lot of people think New York City is the capital of New York State. It's not. Albany is. A lot of people figure, well, Philadelphia is the capital of Pennsylvania. No, it's not. Harrisburg is. You should know the name of the capital of your state. In fact, it's worth a little visit. Take a road trip one day. Name 2 major political parties in the United States. Well, frankly, honestly, there's only 2 major political parties in the United States. That's the Republican Party and the Democratic. It's not the Democrat Party, it's the Democratic Party. Obviously, the Democratic Party is more liberal, while the Republican Party tends to be more conservative. And what is the political party of the president? Is there anybody on the planet that doesn't know this? Obviously, he's a Republican. Oh, here it is, what I was looking for. USCIS.gov/citizenship/test updates. Did anybody come in? No, I think I have been alone except for that one person in the very beginning. Come on, people. I don't know. Okay. Nobody comes to visit me. Now we're moving on to Oh, nope. No, we're not. Number 15. We only have 5 more. Number 15. What is the name of the Speaker of the House? Let me double check this one more time. I think. See, I didn't. We just went over this. Was it like in section 3 or 4 or something? Mike Johnson. And where is he from originally? Louisiana. They call him MAGA Mike. But he's Speaker of the House. And he's also something that we discussed before also. Third in line for the presidency. If something happens to Trump, obviously J.D. Vance becomes president because he's vice president. And the next person, if for some reason J.D. Vance can't do it, would be the Speaker of the House. Okay, now we're moving on to rights and responsibilities. Describe one of the 4 amendments to the Constitution about who can vote. So listen, you don't, well, they tell you, the 15th, the 19th, the 24th, and 26th amendments relate to the ability to vote. But you don't have to know them by their number. All you have to do is describe it. So one of the amendments says that citizens who are 18 and older can vote. One of them says you don't have to pay a poll tax to vote. That was a way that down south they kept people of color from being able to vote. They made them pay a poll tax, and many of them couldn't afford it. So that eliminated that. And then another one says any citizen over the age of 18, any citizen can vote. See, it used to be when they first started, only men who had land could vote. White men who had land could vote. And then eventually they changed it to you didn't have to have land. And then they changed it to, that blacks were allowed to vote. And then they eventually changed it to women being allowed to vote. That was the 19th Amendment. Very important one, giving women the right to vote. So number 17, name one responsibility that is only for U.S. citizens. Again, the way the question's posed, if you're a native born, you might not know the answer to this because they're looking for specific answers. 1 is to serve on a jury. 2 is to vote in federal election. We're talking about what they're looking for, one responsibility that is only for U.S. citizens. So serve on a jury, vote in a federal election, and that's it. Number 18, name one right only for U.S. citizens. That is the exact same question. No, one right. Name one right only for U.S. citizens. You can vote in a federal election. You can run for federal office. You have to be a citizen to be able to run for federal office. And that's it. And then name 2 rights of everyone living in the U.S. This one's easy. Freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly. What's this all sound like? This is the First Amendment, right? Freedom to petition the government, freedom of religion, and the right to bear arms, which happens to be the Second Amendment. I just got into a big pissing fight with somebody on, it was somebody's YouTube comment section where they were talking about how, those illegal aliens, they don't have the right, they don't have freedom of speech in this country. They're guests here. They have to be polite. It's like, I hate to break it to you, bud, but the First Amendment applies to everyone living here. But for diplomats, I guess, or the children of diplomats. That might be an exception. But it doesn't matter if you're legal or illegal. You have a right to express yourself. You have a right to use, to worship your own religion, whatever that religion is, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody. You have the right to assemble at Home Depot if you want to, without getting rounded up by ICE. Anyway, that's not just for permanent residents or U.S. citizens. That's everyone living here. Now, this was sort of a weird question. U.S. citizens, native borns might not get this one. It's the last question, and then I'm going to pop off because I don't think anybody's here. Anybody? Whoops. Is anybody here? No, nobody's here. I had one person pop in for a second or two. So the very last question, you ready? What do we show loyalty to when we say the Pledge of Allegiance? I mean, think about it. I pledge allegiance to the flag. That's one of the answers. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the Republic. Okay, never mind. So one of two answers. Either you're pledging your allegiance to the United States or you're pledging your allegiance to the flag. And that's pretty much it. Well, I'm going to get out. I'm disappointed. I was hoping by now, this is what, my third or fourth live stream? I was hoping by now somebody would show up because I've been telling people every Sunday at 10 a.m. I'll be here. It's a good time to ask me a question if you have a question. Or you can write to me at lamigraitu@gmail.com, which I'll put that in the description, what the email is, lamigraitu. That's just for YouTube people. If you have a question, I'll answer it for you. Just if you do that, if you're going to email me a question, put in the subject line, question. So as a reminder, you can take the earlier 5 parts of this test by going through the playlist on my channel. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the last 2 parts of this. If you'd like to support the channel, you can leave me a tip at Buy Me a Coffee. That's true, because I'm on Social Security at this point. I was an attorney for a long time and did not save properly for retirement. So if you want to leave a tip, I'd be more than happy. And I also wanted to tell you that I would like to have, what do I have now? I have 65, I think, subscribers, and I'm trying to get 75 subscribers by the end of the year. Right now it's December 7th. So you could help me out by, like, if you haven't subscribed, hit subscribe. Because I asked this, I think, on the last one that I did, and I jumped from 54 subscribers to 65. So I think just asking people to help me out, because I really, like I said previously, it took me 6 months to get 50 subscribers. And so I'm trying to jumpstart it a little bit. I'm trying to set some goals. And one of the ways I'm trying to do that is to have people, to actually ask people to subscribe so that I can meet this goal. And then we'll see. When I put that out, I thought there's no way this is going to happen. But it jumped from 54 to 65. So I only need 10 more. I only need 10 more subscribers to be able to have my 75. And anyway, have a great week. Happy holidays, whatever you celebrate. I don't know if you care about this, but I have another channel, which I'll see if I can leave a link to it. It's called Brains and Beauty, the Humanities Quiz, or Humanities Quiz channel, or something like that. And I've started doing these quizzes on the humanities, about literature and language, and it's just kind of fun. If you like doing that kind of stuff, I'm going to put one up today a video up today for that, which is about what came first. Like, it's all Christmas based. So, like, what came first, eggnog or fruitcake? It's a tradition of drinking eggnog or eating fruitcake. Well, I'll give you a hint. Fruitcake, because it dates back to the Roman times. How about that? But it was really interesting. There's like 20, I think 20 or 25 different questions on there. And what I'm trying to do with that is not just have a quiz channel, but have a quiz channel where you actually learn something. And I have little explanations at the end of, when you're getting the answer. It's more information about, well, when this actually started and where this started and who started it. So I'll put that in the description below as well, that channel, and hopefully a link to it. See if I don't screw that up. But it's called Brains and Beauty. And I think that's going to do it. Hold on one second. Hold on. Yeah. So is anybody, just before I leave, nobody's here. So this is getting just, I gave up a lunch today, a breakfast actually, a brunch. Somebody wanted to meet me, one of my old clients, an Irish guy who's hilarious. He and his wife wanted to get together with me for Sunday at 10 for brunch. And I said, oh yeah, sure. And then like 2 days later, I remembered, oh my God, I have my live stream. I can't do that. I have to be. And my daughter yesterday, she's like, well, just cancel the live stream. I'm like, I can't cancel the live stream. I've told everybody on all my videos that it's going to be every Sunday at 10 a.m. I have to be here. And look, nobody showed up. Oh, well, there you go. We'll come back next week and we'll do I think we have 2 more. So one next week and one the following week. I like doing it this way, verbally, just because I can explain more. And then that's it. And if I don't see you, happy holidays, right? Hold your family close. You never know what could happen down the road. And if you haven't started to put some money away and you don't have a green card yet, even if you do have a green card, every week, $20, $30, put it away, because sooner or later, this could happen to you. I know everybody thinks, well, it's not going to happen to me. It could. So save your pennies, because lawyers, unfortunately, are expensive. Have a good week. Happy holidays to everybody. Stay safe.